Hello, everyone. Welcome to another pre-show. Here we are again. Gather round.
Yes, come on in, ladies and gentlemen, and look. They've been dancing around the maypole. They look like something out of Sherwood Forest and Robin Hood. That's
Mmm.
amazing. Look, the lady over there is dressed like Maid Marian. Can you eat? All right, fine. I don't care. Well,
You like,
happy May Day.
yeah.
Come on in.
Happy St. Joseph the Worker Day. May 1st.
Arise, St. Joseph of the world. What? No, that's not how it
Now,
goes.
don't mix St. Joseph the Worker with communist propaganda.
No, St. Joseph the Worker was intended to combat communist propaganda, specifically by Pope Pius XII.
Oh, man. That reminds me. I saw such a great hat yesterday. I actually am going to get it. I've never done that before where you just see something. And it's a take on Make America Great Again. It's a spin. It says Make Orwell fiction again. That's I was like that. Wow.
Yeah.
Because I just love that because I feel like first off, no one's only dumb people aren't going to give you flack for it because they don't even know what that's saying.
No,
And I
that's
think
true.
smart people in general, they might disagree here and there on what exactly is Orwellian that they dislike, but I feel like everybody can rally around that.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And I make Orwell fiction again. We have a new. We'll have to do this other show as well. I don't mind saying that's worthwhile.
Okay, very good, very good. All
Well,
right,
all right, my
questions.
merry men and maids. What do we got in terms of questions from our delightful, high-paying, high-rolling audience?
Hmm. Yeah, a couple questions from Superfan Nate, who's been a fan for just about as long as anyone, to be honest. So
You
his
get our
first.
respect, sir.
Yes. How sympathetic can a Catholic be to pacifism without imposing it on others? I used to be a very militant person, but after seeing what human beings can do to each other in history and my fear of civil war in my beloved USA, I want to live as a more peace seeking person without being a weenie. Is the Catholic worker position on modern war in line with the magisterium?
Well, let's put it this way. It's certainly it is a possible interpretation because it's very important to bear in mind that their position is not pacifism per se. What they've said is that in modern war, it is impossible to have a just war because of the technology that is used that destroys civilians by en masse, which is not the same thing as pacifism. So I would suspect that if your neighborhood or home were coming under attack, you would have no need to play the weenie. You would not have to be the coward of the county.
Okay, so pacifism stands in stark contrast to just war theory, abiding by just
Yeah.
war theory. That seems so. Based on what you just said, where it's impossible to, what
Well,
did you
that's
say?
what the Catholic
Collateral?
workers say.
No, no, yeah, no. I'm just saying, but your representation of their position. So
Yeah.
they're saying it's impossible to avoid collateral, but what if the evil that's being done is like infinitely greater than the collateral that a just war would bring? See, they seem to be
Well,
disregarding that prudential, weighing in one's mind.
this this is why several members of the Catholic worker during World War II left the movement and enlisted.
Hmm.
So I didn't say it was the only possibility. I say it is a feasible interpretation. I certainly didn't say it was the only one.
Okay.
I mean, I don't hold it. But if you did, holding it would not require you to be a weenie in terms of self-defense.
Okay.
And you would not have to be the coward of the county.
All right.
You wouldn't
Nate,
even have to be a Kenny Rogers fan.
what does he have anything to do with this?
Well, he sang The Coward of the County.
Oh, okay.
Promise me, dear son, not to do the things I've done. Stay away from troubles when you can. And it don't mean you're weak if you turn the other cheek. You don't have to fight to be a man. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to excuse my possibly COVID-inflicted voice today.
Yes. Charles will explain on the full episode. So.
Yes, but if you don't tune into the full episode, you'll never know.
All right, another question from Nate. He says, what is a good way to submit a screenplay to a studio?
Send it to me with a check for $50,000, and I guarantee someone or other will read it. No, the best way is to get yourself an agent. But I have never sold a screenplay. I know a lot of people who have, but it's never been something I wanted to do myself, and my knowledge of it is minimal.
Yeah, that's what they say. I've never broken through to that world, but the impression I get is there's a very finite number of agents who work with the big boys, and that everything is filtered through them, and which is, reasonable, because, I mean, how could studios deal with 50,000 aspiring writers with screenplays?
It'd be very hard. Now, what you might do is go to a school, if you're young enough. Go to a school like USC or some other film writing school that has a bit of prestige. Take a course in film writing, and perhaps if you can impress one of your professors, they'll know someone who knows someone.
Well, Nate's
not a joke.
Unfortunately, Nate is East Coast.
Oh, well.
Let's see. Question from Philip. Is the Easter Bunny supernatural or preternatural?
Theologians have toiled over that issue for years. But you would have to say preternatural. Because supernatural fits solely God himself and his working. Preternatural are everything from poltergeists and fairies to mysterious baskets left outside your door, filled with chocolate goodies.
Okay.
Santa Claus, too.
Of course. Question from Aaron. Dear Mr. Coulombe, and an insolent nod to the plutocratic publisher, I've been recently rereading C.S. Forrester's Hornblower books, and was reminded that there was an American branch of the Bonaparte family via Napoleon's brother Jerome and his wife Elizabeth Patterson Bonaparte, whose sons and grandsons had military and political careers in the U.S. during the 19th and early 20th centuries. Does Monsieur Coulombe know of what happened to the American Bonapartes after the Great War, as they seem to have disappeared from public life since then? Also, will Monsieur Coulombe describe how, via Elizabeth Patterson Bonaparte's niece, Napoleon was related to the Duke of Wellington and Charles Carroll of Carrollton?
Well, the American branch of the Bonaparte family became extinct with the death of Elizabeth Patterson's great-grandson in the 1950s. She had two grandsons, one of whom had no children, one of whom had a son and a daughter, and the daughter got married to a German officer, I think. And the great-grandson had no children. So that was the end of the American Bonapartes, although they did have, as you rightly point out, a creditable career over here. Now, to answer your other question, her brother married Charles Carroll's granddaughter. And after he died, she married the older brother of the Duke of Wellington. So, in a nutshell, It was through her sister-in-law.
Okay. Question from Sandra. Hi, Vincent and Charles. I respect the FBI. When I was a kid, our family used to watch a TV show. I was taught to pay more respect to the FBI than to local law enforcement. I'm not sure about how to feel about former director J. Edgar Hoover. I've heard a lot of bad things about him, and not just relating to MLK. One of those things I heard was that he was an active homosexual who was being blackmailed. What is your opinion about Bobby Kennedy's problem with Hoover?
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, my uncle by marriage was an FBI man, my father's brother-in-law. And he had been special agent in charge first of the state of Kentucky and then of Southern Ohio when he retired. And way back then, in the early 80s, there were these rumors about Hoover. So I asked him, and he said, they're not true. Now, whether he was just defending his boss or didn't know anything else, or in fact, the charges weren't true, I have no way of knowing. No way of knowing at all. He does seem, J. Edgar Hoover, I mean, not my uncle, he does seem to have been a very difficult individual. And Robert Kennedy was not always the most open and easy person to get along with either. So I could well see that they might have had issues.
Yeah, my family has a lot of run-ins with Bobby Kennedy, I'll tell you that. But,
let's not talk about that. Remember what you're always telling me about loose lips sink ships?
Yeah.
Let's just say that there were certain elements in the Italian-American community where Robert Kennedy was not as popular as he was elsewhere.
That's right. Okay,
And I'll tell you what I told the senatorial committee.
Yeah.
What's the next question?
Yeah. Question from Brian. Charles, how much power did Blessed Emperor Charles have in relationship to his politicians? What is the history of this relationship for the Holy Roman and Austro-Hungarian emperors?
Oof. Well, of course, politicians as we know them didn't really exist at the national level until the late 18th, early 19th centuries. You've always had them at the local level, of course, regardless of what they've been called. Emperor Karl was very keen on being a constitutional monarch. Now, Franz Joseph, his predecessor and great uncle, had steered Austria-Hungary through the years of going from absolutism, so-called, to representative government. And this, of course, meant the rise of the political class, which, when you have elections, that's what you get. I mean, national elections. Franz Joseph had suspended Parliament at the beginning of 1914, the Austrian Parliament, not the Hungarian, because it ceased to function. It was so divided that he basically shut it down and was ruling by decree when his nephew was murdered at Sarajevo. Kaiser Karl was keen on restoring the voice of the people, quote unquote. And so he did. It didn't really do him a lot of good, frankly. You know, one of the things that the outbreak of World War I showed was that already, especially in Russia and Germany, the professional politicians held more power than the monarchs. Now, Austria was a special case, but even there, Emperor Franz Joseph's ministers overruled him in terms of going to war. So the answer is, because it was wartime and because of the circumstances, He had, in one sense, more power than he might have had. But in the end, it was his politicians who betrayed him.
What did you say about Blessed Karl and the voice of the people? Exactly. He wanted to restore them?
He believed, as many people do, that Parliament was the voice of the people.
What influenced him to think that way?
It's what he was taught.
Okay.
I mean, most of us think that elections bestow legitimacy on politicians, and that politicians are the voice of the people. Most of us believe that to this day.
Okay, because there seems to be a break with, obviously, his legacy in, of everything that he comes from. You've dedicated several chapters in the beginning of your book, available at Tumblr House, $27.95 with free shipping and handling.
Right now, our supplies last.
But you take a lot of time to explain everything that Blessed Karl came from with his lineage. And to me, none of that had to do with the voice of the people.
It didn't, but nevertheless, there were Habsburgs were faced with over the course of the 19th century into the 20th. And that was the growth in the size of the electorate until finally they had universal suffrage, and the rise of nationalism, which happened around the same time. Now, how do you deal with that? Do you shoot everybody? Or do you try to accommodate it? They tried to accommodate it, and to a great degree they succeeded. It's interesting that there was a famous Czech writer, what was his name? Can't think of it right now. But in the 1930s, who said that we had no idea how wrong we were to want to get rid of them. They weren't perfect, but they were better than anything we could make on our own. Of course, that was before Hitler overthrew Czechoslovakia and before the Soviets marched in. I doubt what happened later would have changed his mind.
Yes.
But this stuff was in the air. I mean, the idea of democracy as a good in and of itself is a powerful drug.
Yeah.
And again, what are you supposed to do about it? Shoot everybody?
Yeah. I mean, I can see why a lot of people feel that way too, especially from where they come from. I read a lot of Cardinal Seurat's books, and he feels very, very strongly of democracy. But where he came from, of course, you know what I mean? Like all the leaders are committing genocide.
Yeah.
You don't have any decent leaders, so of course he would feel that way.
I mean, similarly, people have asked me why it is that the Eastern and Central Europeans were so keen on getting into the European Union. Well, the reason is kind of obvious. It meant escaping forever and for good the Soviet bloc. It meant really becoming part of Europe. That's what they were saying.
Yeah.
Not, won't this be a great way to bring in abortion and gay marriage?
Yeah. So, I'm glad we're bringing these points up because when it comes to disagreements with other people, you have to understand that they're coming from a different place. It's not just some sort of vacuum where you're trying to objectively approach truth. Like.
No. Everyone is coming from wherever it is they happen to be.
Yeah.
I mean, look, my little joke about being raised most of my life in Southern California is that you lived in SoCal too long when you look at a very picturesque building or a scene, some scenery somewhere, and you look and the first thought is, wow, this looks like a movie set. And you have to remember, no, movie sets are actually designed after real places. But see, it's a cultural thing.
That's funny. That's I have to concede that is true.
Of course it's true. And you know yourself, when you've gone back to Pennsylvania or New York, when you've gone anywhere, you've looked and you've said, wow, that's like a movie set. Of course you have. You were raised in Southern California. What do you think? And that, I mean, it's a small thing, but it shows you how your time and place affects your perception.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you another thing that makes Southern Californians different. What do you call the big freeway that runs east-west through Arcadia and Monrovia?
I mean, what the 10? What? The 10?
No, well, the 10's further south. I was thinking of the 210.
Oh, the 210. Sure. Okay.
But the 10 will do.
Yeah.
You notice you said the.
Yeah, you've said this before, and people don't do the.
No.
That's
not
weird,
outside
man.
of SoCal.
That's weird. I actually am staunchly. That's cats and dogs right there. The other way doesn't work for me.
So you take 210.
No. Okay, just get out, Charles. Just get out, because you are not a Californian if you talk that way.
Well, I'll tell you. You remember where the title comes from, the reason why people say it.
I forgot. What's the reason?
Well, it's because all of our freeways had names once.
That's right, the Santa Monica Freeway, yeah.
The Long Beach, the Harbor, the Foothill. Yeah, the Golden State.
Yeah, the 5, yeah, wow.
The 5 was the Golden State.
Wow.
The 405, of course, was the San Diego.
The 210 didn't have a name, did it?
Yeah, it was the Foothill Freeway.
What about the 10?
The which?
The 10.
The 10 was the Santa Monica Freeway.
The 10 was the Santa Monica?
Yeah.
Wow, that's surprising. I thought the 405 would be the Santa Monica Freeway.
No, that was the San Diego.
Wow. Fascinating, Charles.
Even saying these things, I'm feeling goosebumps.
It feels good. It feels good, yeah.
The Glendale was the 2, the Glendale Freeway.
It still says that on the sign. I pass that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Glendale, the the Golden State, the Hollywood.
Should all feel that? I feel like you're favoring these things. A little bit more personal, a little bit more not so mechanical, perhaps.
Yeah. Although I remember years ago, I had a very good friend, well, a couple of them. One of them, it was a white Russian officer, Captain Dumbadze. And he introduced my parents and my brother and me to the Toastmasters, which was it still exists. It's a group to help you speak and all that. And we joined them. And this particular group of them met at the late lamented Philon's Moongate restaurant in beautiful Panorama City, California. Well, we had there was another member of the club whose name escapes you right now, but he taught at a Catholic academy, Our Lady of Victory in the Valley. I can't think of his name right now, old guy at the time. But he gave a very funny talk one night, using Captain Dumbadze's Russian accent and making fun of the freeway names. So he says, I come from Russia. I get on your Los Angeles freeway system. I don't understand. I get on Golden State. I thought I was in Golden State. Then I see San Diego. I don't want to go to San Diego. Then I see Hollywood. Okay, Hollywood is okay, but I don't want to go to Hollywood. Then I see Santa Monica. I don't know how to get anywhere. It's too strange. But the worst of it all is that you Americans are so pro-Israel. You have renamed all your freeways in honor of Menachem Begin.
What?
Yes, I see at the entrance of every freeway, Begin Freeway.
Oh. Okay.
That's what he said, really.
Wow.
Is that not one of the worst puns you've ever heard?
That seems like a stretch, but if it happened IRL, okay.
It did. And it happened at Philon's Moongate in beautiful Panorama City, California, the city of the future.
Okay. We've got a couple more questions from Andrew.
All right.
I don't know much about it, but there seems to be different interpretations of the crucifixion in regards to how many nails were used to crucify our Lord. The most common appears to be that 3 nails were used, one for each hand, and a third used through both feet, one placed over the other. However, I am seeing increasingly more representations of Christ crucified where 4 nails are used, one for each hand and one for each foot. Is there a deeper theological reasoning for these competing interpretations? Something perhaps symbolic, like how the Jansenists placed Christ's arms on their crucifixes. Same question in regards to how the repentant and unrepentant thieves are crucified. In some artistic renderings, they are simply tied to their crosses, while in others they are nailed to them like our Lord. I do remember being taught as a child that the good and bad thieves were tied but not nailed to their crosses, so as to distinguish their deaths from the death of our Lord. What is the theological reasoning for either interpretation?
You know, honestly, I do not know. I really don't. Those are very good questions. And I know what he means because I've seen them myself. But to be honest with you, I don't know, and I've never even thought of it. It just struck me as, I don't know, different interpretations of the act by different artists. I really don't know. I'll look into it. But as of this moment, I do not know.
Okay, he says, as a side note, Charles, how are you finding your studies? How close are you to completing your program? Do you feel that it has been worth the time, money, and effort? And would you recommend ITI to someone looking to pursue a degree in theology?
Well, I have 2 more glorious years starting next September. I'm almost at the end of this semester. Yeah, do I think it was worth the time and trouble? Absolutely.
Why?
Well, I got a chance to really wrestle with Plato and Aristotle in a way I never did before. A lot of original texts that were available to me that were not available at home. The teachers, the instructors are brilliant, really brilliant people. And the curriculum is very much intertwined. In other words, any one thing you read, you'll find connections with in everything else you're studying. And it's important to bear in mind they don't just teach theology or philosophy. They also teach history. There's a very good survey course for Western history, and we studied the Odyssey, the Iliad, and the Aeneid. Plus, you get if you go for the BA, you will have 2 years of Latin. If you go for the Masters, which is a 5-year program, if you don't have any bachelor's work behind you, or if you don't have the right kind of bachelor's work, in which case you've got 5 years ahead of you. But the 2 years of the master's, you study Greek. So that's all very, very good. Beyond that, you're in Austria. You're not in Podunk. You're in Austria. And when anti-COVID doesn't shut us down, you have all sorts of travel opportunities around here that are just incredible. Really, really marvelous, marvelous things. And not just in Austria. You've got to remember that when you're in Austria, again, when anti-COVID isn't doing her thing, there isn't a place in Europe that's more than 200 euros round trip by plane. So you can use your weekends and your vacations, presuming you're keeping up your studies, of course, to explore. So all of that, I think, plus I have to say it's cheaper than a lot of American educational institutions, but they take U.S. student loans, which most colleges over here do not. So all in all, I would recommend it highly.
If I ever was in Austria, there are a lot of places to go to, but the one place that you've illustrated or shared on your Facebook page is I forgot the name of it, but I remember it had a special distinction with Blessed Charles because he went there. So it's one of those little towns that are right on a lake. It's right on the edge. Where?
Hallstatt.
That's it. That is like one of the most picturesque little towns I've ever seen.
Oh, I tell you, seeing it in real life,
I couldn't even imagine.
It was like a movie set.
Not even.
Yes.
Though. I've never seen a movie set like with that sort of location. That's so beyond, honestly.
Well, yeah, but you got to bear in mind that the architecture of the place is very storybook.
Yeah.
So you combine that architecture and that lake.
Yeah.
And it's just jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
Plus, when I went there, because of anti-COVID, it was not mobbed by tourists.
Mm.
But the restaurants were open, and boy, were they happy to see me.
All right. Okay, that's it for the pre-show.
Wow.
So, stay tuned for the full episode. Plenty of wonderful questions. Yeah.
And you'll find out what's going on with my health if you're all that interested. Listen, darlings, if you've got your health, you've got everything.
That's right, as they say. Okay, stay tuned, everyone.
See you soon. Ciao, ciao.